Have you ever wondered if the emptiness you feel in your chest is not the absence of a path, but a silent call to recalibrate your internal compass? Close your eyes for a brief moment and try to feel the quiet rhythm dwelling inside your chest right now. Perhaps you feel a weariness that sleep cannot cure, a sensation that the days are merely repetitions of a script you did not choose to write. Perhaps you are going through a moment where everything seems to have lost its color, where the silence of the house seems to echo an emptiness that aches in your very soul. I want you to know that I see you. I understand the weight of this search, and I know how much you have been asking for a sign, for a direction to bring peace to your weary heart. So often, we lose ourselves in the misconception of the external search, believing that the meaning of life is a geographical destination or an achievement waiting just past the next bend in the road. We chase answers as if they were hidden somewhere out in the world, ignoring that meaning is not something found outside, but a radio frequency that your own body must learn to tune into so that the music of life can make sense once again. To understand why this voice seems so distant, we must look at what the science of the soul reveals to us through Dr. Bruce Lipton's biology of belief. Imagine that each of your trillions of cells functions like a tiny, sophisticated radio receptor, catching the energies that surround us at every moment. The membrane of each cell is the true brain of this system, and it decides what enters and what leaves your biological sanctuary. When you live submerged in stress, in the grief of a loss that will not heal, or in the fear of tomorrow, your biology enters a mode of deep protection. In this survival state, your cells close down, growth pathways are interrupted, and you become incapable of catching the subtle signals that the universe and the divine are sending you right now. If your biology is in defense mode, the signals of the sacred cannot pierce the barrier of fear, because your body understands that it only needs to fight or flee, not flourish. This lost connection happens because the unified field, as Greg Braden beautifully describes, does not communicate through articulate words or logical concepts that the rational mind tries to decipher. The divine speaks the language of human emotion, which is the sacred code capable of altering the very quantum matrix of our reality. When you feel a deep gratitude or a peace that surpasses understanding, you are sending a clear signal to the field, and it is within this silent dialogue that answers begin to emerge. What we call the voice of the divine is, in reality, the harmony between what you feel and what the universe vibrates. If there is static between what you ask for and what you feel, the communication gets lost along the way, leaving only the sense of abandonment and emptiness that so heavily wounds your daily walk. In our gathering today, my sole intention is to propose that deciphering the voice of the divine does not require complex rituals or external sacrifices, but rather a delicate process of clearing the electromagnetic interference that your heart has accumulated over the years. We are going to learn how to quiet the noise of resentments and expectations so that you can, finally, hear what has always been whispered in your ear. I invite you to abandon the idea that you need to fix something within yourself, for you are not broken. You are merely in a profound process of transformation and adjustment. The meaning of your journey is knocking at your door, waiting only for you to learn to silence fear, so that the door of perception may open once again to the light of truth. The alphabet of the invisible. Why you do not hear what you seek. Often, the feeling of being lost in a dead-end labyrinth is born from a vibrational deafness that we do not even realize we carry. This deafness is not a defect of your soul, but a defense mechanism of your survival mind, which has learned to interpret every unexpected event, every loss, and every silence as an imminent threat. When you live in this constant state of alert, your central nervous system occupies the entire space of your consciousness with the noise of urgency, and this prevents you from hearing subtle intuition, that still, small voice that Neville Goddard described as our creative imagination in contact with the infinite. It is impossible to hear the whisper of a gentle breeze if you are in the midst of an emotional gale that you yourself feed with your anxieties. For the voice of the divine does not shout to compete with your fear. It waits patiently for you to choose silence. In this ceaseless search for relief, it is common to fall into the trap of what we might call the noise of spiritual dopamine, which is that anxious craving for quick answers, catchy phrases, or miracles that happen overnight. This longing for instant gratification creates a constant ringing in your mind, a pressure that masks the gentle voice of consciousness and causes you to ignore the slow, deep processes of the soul. You ask for a sign, but because you expect it to arrive wrapped in grand spectacles, you end up ignoring the answer that has already come through the calm you felt while looking at the sky or through a phrase from a stranger that touched a tender spot in your being. The divine does not share the haste of the modern world. He moves in the time of the stars and the seeds, and he requires you to slow your pace to read what is written between the lines of your daily life. There is also a counterintuitive revelation that we must welcome with courage. Often, the divine speaks to you through what did not happen. That door that closed despite all your prayers, that relationship that ended leaving a trail of pain, or that project that seemed to be the solution to your life and simply never got off the ground. These can be the deepest forms of dialogue that the universe has established with you. In the grammar of the invisible, what you interpret as rejection or failure is, in truth, a sacred deliverance disguised as a delay or a loss. When you allow yourself to accept that the universe's no is a form of protection, you stop fighting reality and begin to realize that you are being guided towards something your current mind cannot yet reach, but which your soul already knows and awaits with serenity. To begin deciphering this alphabet, I invite you to practice a more refined perception in your daily life, learning to differentiate fear from the divine voice by the impact they have on your body. Fear is loud. It brings a tightening in the throat, a sense of urgency and contraction, making you believe that if you do not act right now, all will be lost. The divine voice, on the other hand, even when it brings guidance you might not want to hear, always carries a sense of expansion and a clarity that relaxes your shoulders. Always remember this metaphor. The divine is like the bottom of a crystal-clear lake, but you will only be able to see the precious stones resting on its bed when you stop agitating the waters with anxiety and the haste to find them. When the mud of worry settles, the truth appears on its own, without effort and without pain. The language of coincidences and the neuroscience of synchronicity. We often walk through life ignoring the signs the field scatters along our path, making the mistake of believing in the randomness of everything around us. We have a habit of discarding unexpected encounters, phrases overheard by chance, or thoughts that arise out of nowhere as if they were mere valueless coincidences, closing the door on a deep and constant dialogue with the quantum field. However, the universe does not play dice and does not waste movements. Every tiny event that aligns harmoniously in your routine is an attempt by the divine to establish a direct conversation with your soul. When you ignore these synchronicities, you are, in fact, silencing the voice you so long to hear because you expect the sacred to manifest in lightning bolts, whereas it prefers to manifest in the discreet gleam of a detail that only an attentive heart can capture. Neuroscience offers us a fascinating explanation for this phenomenon through what we call the reticular activating system, or RAS. This biological filter located in your brain is responsible for selecting what is important among the millions of stimuli we receive every second. By setting a sacred intention and elevating your vibrational frequency, as Joe Dispenza teaches, you recalibrate this filter, and your brain begins to identify meaningful patterns that were previously invisible to your eyes. It is not that the universe only started sending signals now. It is that, by changing your internal state, you finally gave yourselves permission to perceive the language that has always been there. The miracle is not in the sign that falls from the sky, but in the transformation of your perception that allows you to see the sacred hidden within the ordinary. We must be prepared for the breaking of expectations, because the voice of the divine rarely finds itself in grand events or on illuminated stages. It resides, most of the time, in the sacred geometry of small encounters and in the casual phrases that cross our path. It could be a song that plays on the radio at the exact moment you were thinking of someone who has passed away, or a book that falls from the shelf revealing the answer you had been seeking for weeks. These synchronicities are proof that there is a loving intelligence orchestrating reality behind the veil of matter, connecting your internal desire to external manifestation. When you begin to validate these experiences instead of doubting them, you strengthen the thread that binds you to the source and begin to walk with the confidence of someone who knows they are never walking alone. To strengthen this connection in your daily application, I invite you to practice the exercise of tracing the trail, dedicating a few minutes at the end of your day to record at least 3 small synchronicities that occurred over the last few hours. By doing this, you are training your muscle of spiritual perception and sending a clear message to the universe that you are paying attention and ready for dialogue. View synchronicities as if they were breadcrumbs left on a forest path. They may not show the entire map of your life all at once, nor reveal the final destination of your journey, but they indicate with absolute precision what the next safe step is for you to take. Trust the trail the divine leaves for you, for it is the guarantee that you are being led back home. The silent factor that sabotages your frequency, the urgency of the ego. Often, the greatest barrier preventing us from hearing divine guidance is not a lack of faith, but the trap of control that our ego desperately tries to maintain over life. We fall into the mistake of believing that we need to know exactly how and when things are going to happen, and this demand creates a lead barrier that isolates our consciousness from intuitive guidance. The ego fears the unknown, and therefore, it tries to architect every detail of the future, but in doing so, it blocks the fluidity of the universe. When you cling to control, you are telling the quantum field that you do not trust the process, and this tension closes the portals of the soul. It is necessary to understand that the urgency of the rational mind is, in reality, noise that prevents the melody of the divine from being heard clearly. This resistance creates what we call dissonance between your request and your vibration, a state where your words ask for direction, but your body vibrates mistrust and fear. As quantum physics and the teachings of Neville Goddard instruct us, the universe does not respond to what you say. It responds to who you are and to what you feel as truth within your cells. If you offer a prayer asking for peace, but your emotional state is plunged into anxiety and scarcity, the quantum field will only reflect more reasons for you to feel anxious. The meaning of the journey is not something you find through mental effort or struggle, but something you allow to find you the moment you let go of the rigid architecture you tried to impose upon your destiny. The true revelation happens when you understand that the silence of God is not an absence of an answer, but an invitation for you to release the reins and allow the greater intelligence to take command. When you stop trying to force outcomes, you create a sacred space where guidance can finally flourish without the interference of your limiting expectations. It is within this conscious surrender that life begins to organize itself in ways you could never have planned with your logical mind. The divine works in spontaneity and surrender, and to enter this dance, you must accept that you do not need to have all the answers right now, for the path reveals itself as your feet touch the ground with trust. To aid in this alignment, there is a very simple coherence technique that uses heart breathing to balance your magnetic field. I invite you, in moments of doubt, to place your hand over the center of your chest and breathe slowly and deeply, imagining that the air enters and exits directly through your heart. This simple practice harmonizes the rhythm of the heart with the brain, creating what we call a fertile silence, where the mind quiets and the spirit expands. Always remember that trying to hear the divine while anxious is like trying to read a beautiful poem in the midst of a hurricane. The message is there, the words are real and profound, but the letters are all scattered by the force of your own internal conflict. Breathe, calm the hurricane, and let the poem of life reveal itself to you, transmuting the emptiness into a space for listening. It is common to feel a deep anguish when the waters of life seem to stagnate and nothing new appears to be happening on our horizon. In these moments of uncertainty, the fear of spiritual abandonment often knocks at the door, making us believe we have been forgotten by the universe or that our prayers got lost along the way. This feeling of emptiness, which often arises after major losses or existential crises, is interpreted by our mind as an arid, lifeless desert. However, it is vital that you understand that this silence is not a punishment, but a necessary preparation of your biology for something your consciousness cannot yet process. What you feel as a painful vacuum is, in reality, space being cleared so that a new version of you can, finally, take its place in the world. If we look at the concept of the quantum vacuum as the science of Tom Campbell teaches us, we discover that where there appears to be no matter, there exists an infinite potential for creation. The silence you experience today is the sacred womb where your new reality is being gestated, invisible to your physical eyes. Just as a seed needs the darkness and silence of the earth to break its shell and begin to sprout, your soul also requires these periods of apparent inactivity to recalibrate its vibrational frequency. The divine is not mute. He is working in the deepest layers of your being, adjusting your cells and your beliefs so that you will be capable of sustaining the light of what is to come without burning yourself. This shift in perception is what transforms tedium or waiting into a period of sacred calibration. When you learn to view waiting not as a delay, but as a time of maturation, anxiety loses its grip on your heart. Imagine that the universe is adjusting the gears of your life for the next level of consciousness, and that any rushed movement right now could compromise the harmony of the whole. Accepting this time of calm is an act of deep faith in the intelligence that governs the stars. It is trusting that the flow of life knows exactly when you are ready to bloom. Instead of filling this emptiness with noisy distractions or desperate searches, try simply being present in it, observing the thoughts that arise out of nowhere with the curiosity of someone discovering a new continent. The practical effect of this stance is that you begin to use moments of solitude not as a burden, but as a laboratory for inner observation. By observing the silence, you begin to notice that the purest thoughts and the most brilliant ideas only emerge when the voices of the world grow quiet. Always remember the analogy of music. The interval between musical notes is, in fact, what creates the melody and gives meaning to the composition. Without the strategic silence between the acts, the music of your existence would be nothing but a deafening noise, a mass of sound without form and without beauty. Honor your silence, for it is within it that the divine is writing the score for your next great symphony of overcoming and peace. The spiritual anatomy of crises, the divine in chaos. Often, in the face of a profound loss or an unexpected turnaround that collapses upon us, we are seized by a feeling of injustice that pushes us into the blockage of victimhood. It is natural for pain to make us question, why did this happen to me? But we must have the courage to realize that this question, though human, closes the portals of spiritual understanding and chains us to the rubble of the past. When you place yourself in the role of a victim of circumstances, your biology understands that you are under constant attack, and this prevents you from seeing the greater purpose residing at the center of the storm. I understand that it hurts to see the structures of life break, but I invite you to consider that sometimes the universe needs to dismantle what is solid so that you can become fluid once more. The science of epigenetics, as Dr. Bruce Lipton teaches us with such clarity, reveals that prolonged stress caused by resistance to pain alters our gene expression into a permanent state of defense, which makes us sick and blinds us. However, when we choose conscious acceptance, which is not the same as passive resignation, but rather the recognition that present reality is our starting point, we open space for grace. By accepting chaos as part of a process of divine reorganization, you signal to your cells that the danger has passed and that it is safe to grow again. It is in this state of openness that pain ceases to be a dead weight and becomes a portal for listening, allowing you to receive the strength necessary to rebuild your life upon much deeper and truer foundations. This is the great revelation of the hidden purpose that crises carry. What you call a disaster is, in many cases, the divine removing a structure that became too small for the soul you are becoming right now. If you observe your path with honesty, you will realize that your greatest transformations and your strongest versions were born precisely in the moments when you thought you could not bear the weight of the world. Chaos does not come to destroy you, but to break the hardened shell of the ego that prevented your light from shining. When the ground disappears, it is because the universe is inviting you to learn that you possess wings you never needed to use while walking on solid ground. To transform this understanding into a conscious action, I propose that you change the lens through which you observe your scars. Instead of asking the universe the reason for your suffering, try asking with humility, "What is this situation trying to whisper to me?" By making this internal shift, you reclaim your personal power and transform pain into a tool for evolution. Always remember this metaphor. The sculptor's chisel seems to be wounding and assaulting the rough stone, chipping away pieces with force and precision, but in reality, it is only removing everything that does not belong to the work of art already dwelling inside. Each blow of fate is a movement of the divine to liberate the beauty you cannot yet see, but which he already knows perfectly. The integration of meaning into human biology. As we reach the end of this reflection, I invite you to take a deep breath and feel how every word we have shared echoed in your cells, bringing a new light to the synthesis of your personal journey. The meaning of life is not a mathematical enigma to be solved by your logical mind, nor a riddle that the divine hid from you out of whim. Meaning is a living presence, a pulsation you feel with every beat of your heart when you finally decide to stop fighting the flow. Your biology and your spirituality are not separate paths, but a single sacred dance where your physical body is the instrument allowing the universe to experience itself through your emotions, your tears, and your smiles of overcoming. As Joe Dispenza teaches us regarding the observer effect, the simple act of changing how you observe your daily journey alters the very substance of your reality. By ceasing to look at your days through the lenses of fear and judgment, and beginning to observe them with the curiosity of someone seeking the signs of the sacred, the atoms of your life begin to reorganize to reflect this new perception. You are not a passive victim of circumstances, but a conscious observer who holds the power to collapse a new wave function, transforming a moment of solitude into an encounter with the source, simply through the shift in your internal vibration. It is fundamental that you carry with you Bruce Lipton's reminder about the difference between survival and creation. Fear makes us blind to the sacred because it forces our system to close itself off to the world, whereas love, gratitude, and acceptance make us seers of the invisible. You were born to create, to flourish, and to manifest the beauty that only your soul possesses. But for this, it takes the courage to step out of defense mode and enter into a mode of full trust. The frequency of gratitude rewrites your biological and spiritual reality, opening the doors that fear insisted on keeping locked, and allowing you to walk with the certainty that the universe is not just watching you, but sustaining you in every step. In this symbolic closing, I would like you to see yourself as the universe itself experiencing life in human form, for deciphering the voice of the divine is ultimately learning to hear the very essence that has never been, for a single second, separate from the original source. And what if the pain you feel today is the portal to the life you have always sought? And what if every tear you shed was what cleansed your eyes so that you could, finally, see the light that now guides you? The meaning of your journey is here, right now, in the silence of your breath and in the peace that is beginning to bloom within you. The universe hears you, the universe loves you, and most importantly, the universe dwells within you. Your body listens to everything your soul whispers. You are not broken. You are in transformation. And what if the pain you feel today is the portal to the life and the spiritual maturity you have always sought? If this reflection brought a bit of serenity to your heart and made sense for your journey at this moment, I invite you to interact with this space of sanctuary. To strengthen our egregore of healing and register your commitment to your inner transformation, write the phrase in the comments, "I am the architect of my destiny." By voicing these words, you send a clear signal to your biology and to the quantum field that you have chosen to retake the reins of your own consciousness. Gratitude for sharing your time and your light with me. You are not alone, the universe hears you. Until our next encounter.